Hi everyone, for who doesn't know me, I am Jerome from Dental Access. I'm the digital specialist and a certified dental technician. And today we have a very interesting webinar together with one of my dental friends. I would love to call him all the way from New Zealand. This is Chris Warmerans. He's the owner of the Hibiscus Dental Laboratory. He's also a certified dental technician, and he will definitely do an introduction of his own later on during this presentation. But I will definitely would love to start with this one. So today we're gonna discuss a little bit about discover the latest in specialized cost-effective zirconia for the dental market. I'm in this field for a very long time, over 15 years in milling, and finding the right materials can sometimes be a challenge. Nowadays we're getting more and more materials on the market that are very suitable for everything, but we still need to look at what we can use it for. So one of the things we wanted to make sure is that we found a zirconia that will tick all the boxes. So what we've done is we've added the material of Upcera to our portfolio. And Upcera is a very long-term manufacturer of high aesthetic zirconias. And like I said, we needed to look for a material that ticked all the boxes. We found this material and we definitely think it is a new standard into the multi-layer zirconia. So it ticked definitely the box of strength. It ticked for us the box of translucency, because if we're going to create monolithic cases, we definitely want to have the high aesthetics. We want to have a predictable outcome. That is very important, especially when you work in a manufacturing facility or basic manufacturing lab where you're doing more cases. Is the person who is designing and finishing it is not the same person. So you want to make sure that the one who designs, who does the nesting into the CAM software, who basically takes it out of it, even maybe pre-coloring, all those things, and then all the way up to the table of the ceramist or who is going to finish it, they all need to have a predictable outcome. They don't want to have surprise on their bench. Another one is chipping resistant. It needs to be chipping resistant because some zirconias you need to, for example, mill differently on the margin. So we needed a material that works with basically everything. As long as you've got the right tools, you should be safe to go. Another thing is we wanted to release, especially during these economical climates, we wanted to introduce a material that is a little bit more cost effective. Prices are dropping, people are having a little bit more difficulty. So what do? We find something that is more interesting in that one. Another one is it of course needs to be certified. It needs to be a material that is certified, like a CE certificate, for example. This one is done in Germany. It's certified in Germany. The other thing is minimum stock keeping, and it's not only on our side, but it's also on customer side. And I know Chris is going to tell a little bit about that one also, but we want to make sure that we don't have for every color, every blank, multiples by the thicknesses and everything. So we want to make sure that we have the right thing. So also that one ticked our box. And the good thing is the material we have introduced, and we've introduced it during the ADX this year. Unfortunately, it was half an ADX, but we've introduced this material, and this is the material from Upcera EXPLORE, and we've got them in two ranges, and I'm going to discuss them both of them. The first one we have is the Aesthetic EXPLORE, or Explore Aesthetic, how you would love to call it. We call it the 4D, and then Aesthetic, or the other one. So what this material is a multi-layer isostatic pressed zirconia. And that's of course very important that it has the same pressure when it's being manufactured, being pressed into a millable blank. We all know basically our 98 mil with a collar around it, is that it's pressed from every angle to make sure we got a more dense and compact material. This is really important for strength, but also reliability in milling. And of course, there are many more topics around isostatic pressing, but that is one of the key factors you need to have with a good zirconia. This material has 5 aesthetic layers. It goes from the top, it goes from enamel, then it got 3 transition layers, all the way to a body or an enamel, a dentine layer. So with that one, we have very predictable. And those layers are divided by 23, 18, 18, 18, and 23%. And why is that so important that you have those transitions? First of all, we wanted to have we wanted to see a material that would be very aesthetic, going from a translucent and light incisal on the enamel side, all the way to a more dense, opaque dentine, like the shades of a natural tooth. Not only that, it also has to do with your strength. This material is from incisal, from the enamel layer, the first layer, 727 MPa, and it goes all the way down to 1000 MPa. Translucency from the top 48.8% to 47%, and so on and so on. The thing is, it is as aesthetic as a lithium disilicate. After sintering, it is really high aesthetic, but you got much higher strength than a lithium disilicate or than any other ceramic, normal ceramic part. So this one is indicated for several cases because it's a transitional strength going from a 727 to 1000. It is not always suitable for bigger bridges, for example. So this one is really suitable for veneers, crowns, 2-unit bridges, 3 to 4 unit bridges actually maximum, or when you have a cantilever, but make sure that it is not a bruxism patient, because we all understand that that's definitely going to give us a problem. So these bigger cases, we need to do something else, and that is the next one we're going to follow up after this one. This material we provide as dental access in 2 different sizes, in 14 mil and 18 mil height, and we provide these in the colors A1, A2, and A3, the most common colors for these ones. We talked about that. Also, we have another one, and that is the functional. And the functional is an Zirconia you can use technically for everything. Also, it's multi-layer pressed, same 5 layers, that's all the same, but it goes from incisal, from the top, from 1027 MPa to the bottom to 1300 MPa. So you can imagine most Zirconias are even 1200 MPa. So it's a very strong Zirconia. And still you have all the aesthetic looks. Later on I'm going to show some nice examples, but with that one we'll definitely see how beautiful it is to work with the EXPLORE Zirconia. Also, this one is aesthetic as a lithium disilicate because there is more use for this one. It's a little bit more versatile. We decided that we gonna stock a little bit more colors of this one. So we got the A1, the A2, and the A3. We got a B2 and a D2. And we are stocking these in 14 mil, 18 mil, and 25 millimeters height. And the 25 is especially beautiful for all-on cases. Let me go to the next one. The indications for this one, like the crowns, 2-unit bridges, a 3 to 4 unit bridge, 4 to 6 unit bridge, bridges over 7 units, full arch, and cantilever also. But also with this one, if it is a bruxism patient, yeah, we really have to reconsider if we want to do a full ceramic case anyway. So I would love to show you here a beautiful demonstration of one of the cases that Chris has done. He's using a shade guide next to it, so you can really see how close those, how good those colors really are. And these are coming out of the blank directly like that. So you hardly have to touch base to do anything. So you can already see it's really looking really aesthetic. So Chris, a lot of credits for you for this one. I know you're going to talk a little bit about this also later. But like I said a little bit previously, we also have a 25 mil Zirconia in the functional. Oh, sorry. I'm almost forgetting this one. I'm really sorry for that one. This is also one case that's done by Chris. In full implant case, here you can see beautiful translucency on the incisal edges. And it gives really the nice in-depth color also. And you know you have the strength going from 1000 MPa to a 1300 MPa, or 1027 to a 1300. So you will have really a rigid and strong zirconia that can withstand all the forces that are needed. This one is also one of them I wanted to talk about. Is this is milled out of 25mm zirconia, and this is also the EXPLORE functional. So this one is also the 1027 to 1300 MPa, fully monolithic, and only added by our customer some pink gingiva ceramics. And this is done by Yuji Hoshi. He is owner of the Thumb and Oral Design group in Sydney. And he absolutely loved this zirconia to work with. He says it makes his life a lot easier to get high aesthetics with a little bit less effort. And not in a negative way, of course, but it's, yeah, we're all trying to look for solutions that we can achieve better results, or that we can do it a little bit faster. In the lower picture, it's exactly the same case, but you see there's a light behind it, so you still see the translucency coming through. Okay, so this is for most of us really standard, how to work with EXPLORE, or how to work with zirconia at all. We do a scan, we do a design, we're gonna mill it, we're gonna sinter it, and then we're gonna finish it by just only polishing it, staining, glazing it, or even applying ceramic. What I find really important also is when you as a lab have multiple types of zirconia, and one needs to be milled out of this and one out of that because of strength or anything else, you are very soon very bonded, basically like limited in your sintering furnaces, because this zirconia sinters on a different temperature, different hold time than another type of zirconia. So what the good thing about this one is, both of these type of zirconias, both of the Upcera EXPLORE, sintering on the same temperature. So even though I'm using a little bit more high translucent for a single case, or an posterior case, or sorry, an anterior case, you can still use the same program. This one goes up to a 14-18 degrees, so that is really good. So you have both types of zirconia, you can cover everything you need to do, and you're only gonna use one program. This doesn't change anything in your aesthetics, and definitely will not change anything in your strength. So how to finish this material? Sandblast, clean, just polish, stain, and glaze. I know Chris is gonna touch a little bit about this one. He is using, for example, the Hato brushes to basically define a little bit more on the surface, and make it better, make it smoother. What is very important when you're working with zirconia, especially when you're working with bigger bridges, is that you have to reduce the heating rate. Reduce the heating rate to about 35 degrees per minute. If you are heating too fast, you create stress. Another big point is when you are working with big bridges, increase the cooling down time, and that's even the biggest stress factor for zirconia. If you cool down too fast, or take it out of the oven or furnace, sorry, too fast, if it's still up to 400 degrees or higher, don't take it out. It will definitely create stress in your material, and you might not even see it now, but you can even see it in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and you will have a failed restoration. Any universal stain is usable, and it is very easy to stain up into darkness, go from 8.3 to an 8.3.5, but it is definitely much more complicated, and sometimes even impossible to stain downwards. So going from an 8.3 to an 8.2, that's going to be a little bit difficult. And make sure when you finish it, don't overheat. So water cooling or tools that don't create spot heat is very important to use. So he's also using, for example, when you are staining, and glazing, he's using Renfred brushes, and he can tell you also more about it. We've covered now some things, what it is and everything. I would love to introduce to you all Chris Wolmerans. I don't have a more recent photo of him, and I wanted to make sure he had a purple Dental Access shirt. I don't even have one, but here you can definitely see he's wearing one. So Chris, if you can do a short introduction of yourself, and later on I would love to discuss some things with you about this Zirconia.
Oh, thanks, Jerome. Glad to be here this evening. So we've started milling zirconia about 6 years ago, and we've been working with zirconia for much longer. I think in this time we experienced all sorts of different brands, different phases of the material, you know, multi-layering, ugly white zirconias in the beginning. And the one thing I can say for sure is that the materials are definitely getting better. They're more aesthetic and much easier to work with. I think a lot of the dental manufacturing companies' resources going towards digital dentistry, and it's definitely here to stay, and it's going to be around for a long time.
I fully agree. Definitely. Well, thank you for this short introduction of yourself. And like I said, Chris is I definitely would love to call him a dental friend. And he's got I think definitely the right mindset in how you do manufacturing, how you treat your materials, where you look at when you do your milling. Your background knowledge of milling is very important, especially when you facilitate or use a lot of different materials. It is very good. So I would love to ask you some questions about these materials, if these, and of course we've gone through them. We have two variations of this for the Zirconia. But where do you see personally the biggest benefits of working with each of them?
So we've tried both of them. The aesthetic one basically delivered everything that we already used to from translucent zirconia, with the exception that it is slightly stronger than the one that we normally used to. We normally use it for anteriors, short bridges, and even some posterior work as well. I think the biggest surprise came when we tried the functional, and it was unexpectedly very translucent. If you look at the fact sheet, it's only about 3%, I think, different from the aesthetic one. But it sort of had a great transition between incisal and cervical area. Sometimes with the aesthetic type of translucent types of zirconias, you feel you're coming a little bit short on the cervical area. It can do a little bit more value. This, I think, does represent the natural tooth much better than our conventional one we've been using. I think with the extra stronger zirconia, it definitely opens up more possibilities for longer bridges, maybe not need to overbuild the connectors like we normally do, as well as getting that extra support around the tie bases when we're doing implants.
Oh, you're already cutting up directly to one of my first questions. Thank you for that one. That's really good. One of the things is when you design a restorations, do you take any material specifications in consideration? Like you said, your connector and everything. What do you do different in this case?
Well, so each case, normally we assess it and treat it different. We consider each case individually, and you have to consider the strengths and aesthetics which you need. But we found, yes, in most cases now these days, we opt for monolithic restorations, especially on posteriors, because with some good staining technique, I think you can get absolutely great aesthetics, and it sort of make the need for layering crowns a little bit more redundant.
Okay, yeah, but is there also where do you then see your most failures? Because
so absolutely, what we've seen was the role that connectors play, and we do over contour and make them big and strong. But the most failures actually comes not directly through the connector, but it tends to be where the crown transitions from the connector into the crown. We sometimes, like in this case, we have got a really a narrow restoration or small restoration around, wrapping around the crown part. And that's where the weakness are. And so most of the time, when you see bridges fail, it will be just past the connector. And that's where the biggest problem is. I think a way to overcome this is for the dentist to understand this and to do the adequate tapering so that you have a better transition from thick to thin to deal with the stresses.
Mm-hmm. But when a dentist doesn't taper it enough, as we all know, we don't get the ideal preparations. Is there, in your experience, a different? Are you doing something different? Let's say it like that.
We would opt for slight over contouring, especially on the palatal side, you know, where it's not visible, and you can get away with a fair bit of that without, you know, overdoing it. That's normally our other option, is to do some sort of a transfer coping and do a small reduction and to gain more thicknesses. That's what we would normally do.
Okay. And is that the same for you when you do that, for example, in incisor? Sometimes you get preparations that are in incisor very sharp, and that's something we would love to avoid when working with ceramic cases.
Yep, I agree. Sharp edges normally in general are stuff that you want to avoid. It does create stress points, and like you see on this one, the fracture probably will be right on that corner where it transitions to a thin point. So yeah, avoid sharp edges in general. That's my philosophy.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. Especially in the last years that we're working more on monolithic ceramical cases. Luckily, a huge amount of the dentists is changing their way of preparations, but we unfortunately always get still cases coming in that are not really ideal. All right, thank you for this one. It's really clear. One of the questions I also have to you is, when you are working with this material, is there a specific way in handling this material, and especially in its raw state?
Yeah, so this material, it does mold well in general, and because we do quite a bit of a margin cutback, because we do model-free restorations on posteriors, especially on single posteriors. When we get digital scans, we sometimes opt for not doing a model and go straight from milling, and from milling go to glazing. But the only way to do so is to have a really good protocol in your milling strategies, to be able to mill quite tight to the margin without having that resource of extra thickness to prevent the chipping. And obviously you need good equipment and a good CAM software with good strategies. And luckily we've got that, having a good mill and a good strategy, as also having the expertise and backup of dental access in getting so. As far as the placement in a disc, it's very forgiving. Like I said, it's got, I think, what's it, 5 or 6 layers?
5, yeah.
In it, and they're very subtle from incisal to cervical. So you're not going to get caught. I've seen multicolored discs where you have to be quite precise in your placement, otherwise you get an ugly line in the wrong place. With this, it is quite forgiving. And even if you go blind in it and you suck it in, you're going to end up with a result which you can use. I mean, obviously, if you're more experienced, you're going to place it in a better position to get a best outcome. But you also have to understand that, you know, moving it up or down, you know, you're moving into the strengths of the zirconia as well. And you have to figure out a good balance between, you know, what sort of aesthetics you want to gain and what sort of strengths you want to retain. Like you were showing earlier, we use those Hatho brushes, the burrs, which is quite good. They're excellent for where you do your trimming of the cut holders, and you want to get rid of the markings, or so even if you have some sort of contouring left after milling, which you don't like, it's an excellent way of softening it without changing the shape drastically. And also we like using the Renford brushes for staining, which is fantastic. They don't have any metal in it, so it doesn't react with your liquids, which normally happen with conventional brushes, and they will one will probably last your lifetime. You might want to pass it on one day to somebody that can use it. The other thing I think, which is quite good, which we do, is we like to sandblast the inside of the crowns before sintering under very low pressure. And what it does is it gives you a really coarse surface of the sintering when you really inspect it under the microscope, which will give you extra more surface and some mechanical retention for bonding. I think creating bonding is quite an essential part for laboratories, and that has a huge influence in the longevity of a crown. We changed our protocol for preparing surface for bonding for zirconia almost 2 years ago, and since then we had absolutely no feedback from dentists where they mentioning about crowns coming loose out of the mouth. So that has become quite an essential protocol for us before sintering.
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, definitely makes sense. I think that's a really useful tip. That's like you said, you create a more mechanical retention. You're increasing then your surface structure, and so there's more where your bonding material can connect to. That definitely makes sense. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what, one can really and it's a very obvious difference, you know, and it's something that I encourage everybody to do and to try. Is to sandblast the surface, do the sintering, have a look at it. It's amazing the amount of surface you can create by doing that.
Okay, but okay, I don't want to pull all your tips and tricks from you and your secrets, of course. What kind of sandblast material are you using? What kind of pressure, if I may ask, of course?
So I just use 50 micron and at maybe 1.5 bars. And like I say, keep well clear of the margins because you will lose.
I think we all made that mistake here, right? Yeah, always stay away from your margins. All right. So one of the things you also how do you control your colors, because you mentioned a little bit about your positioning. You said it's very forgiving, even if you're a starter when you start using this material. What have you really experienced in later usage of this one? Is that are there different ways how you can control it?
So this zirconia sinters at a slightly lower temperature. And as we all know, with these coloring liquids, as soon as you fire it lower, the colors are harsher and darker. And especially the reds seems like it comes through a little bit stronger. So you have to be careful when you stain these discs up. You know, you can easily get results which you didn't expect. And so what we do is, you know, if you feel like the reds are too strong, you know, you can refer down maybe to a lighter shade, and that is a good way to get around it. So we don't stock the full range, and for obvious reasons, you know, it's a lot of stock to carry. So we tend to opt for a few shades which we modify, you know, some base colors, and it's a little bit trial and error and experimenting and some expertise, but now we're quite used to it, and we can basically nominate any shade, sometimes a combination shade with 2 or 3 colors, and sort of work our way to it by using our conventional liquids and using a base shade to work from. Like the colors we stock is, we do the A1, A2 for the A shades, and the A2 we can stain up to A3, A3.5, and A4. The B2 can be stained obviously to a B3 and B4, and the D2 we can do the rest of the C colors except the C1, but it will do the D2 and the D3. So out of those basic discs, you can manage to keep at least 2 or 3 thicknesses, which you'll use. And the other advantage is by pairing it up like that, you don't have to nest every crown in a different disc. And if you don't have a disc changer, it means that you don't need to shuffle disc around all day. you can group more crowns together and hopefully have less effort in controlling that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I fully agree. That's the biggest issue I've seen in labs all over the world, but also of course in my own time when I was running the labs, is that it takes a lot of time in changing over all the disk and everything, and especially when you don't have a disk changer. It takes you quite some time. I've once read a research about that one, and it takes on average 20 minutes. So as soon as the mill is ready, technician notice that, goes to the mill, change the block, clean everything, put the other one in, everything, push start, go back to his workbench, and has to think where they left, where they stopped the work. That takes about 20 minutes in total before they are full up to production again. So that's a really good point you're adding there towards this, is that you can minimize the amount of changeovers you are using because you are controlling more colors with less stock. So, and that also directly, basically, you answered already the next question with that one. Do you use different colors to get another color as the end result? Like you said, you go from a B2, you get the B3, B4, you get the D2, you can go into the C colors and the D colors even. And it's definitely easier to stain that up. Do you have any other tips with staining up? Because I know out of experience, when you do stain up, it can get very complicated.
Well, I can definitely say with the functional, you have to be careful because I found that I'm applying less liquid than what I normally would with other brands of Zirconia. So you have to be more conservative and more organized in how much you want to put on. You have to think a bit more about it. I see my staining liquids probably more as colors than shades. So, and that's how I treat them. If I feel like I needed to add more yellow, I would refer back to a B color, and I will use something like that. Like for instance, to stain up an A2, maybe to an A3, we opt more for using an A1 color to bring the intensity up to an A3, which works quite well. I feel I've got more control using that. If I was using an A3, it felt like I have to be more careful with the amount of liquid on the brush. And if I overdo it, it easily becomes too red for my liking. So I think a good way is to see your coloring liquids as a palette of colors, and you pick whatever you need to get to the right result.
Also, that makes definitely sense. So you said be very careful, because otherwise you intensify it too much. The color gets, like you said, too intense easily.
Yeah, I think that the reds could easily be overwhelming in general. So one has to be careful with when you apply your liquids, that you're not moving into that red zone.
Okay, but then let me directly pop this question in, because this I find very interesting. How then you control the translucency?
So a good way that works for me is I like to use, like I was saying, it's got some incisal grain liquids, and I feel that does a great job in lowering the value. And sometimes you get combinations like a high value A2 or A3 in the cervical, and it dilutes to a D2 or D3 towards the incisal, and to combine that in one zirconia color can sometimes be challenging, but it's easier to tone it down with a gray liquid than the other way around, which seems a bit more impossible. If that answers your question, Joanne.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm trying to place everything. Is there then also because can you change also the illusion of more translucency? Because that's pre-sintering. That is of course nearly impossible. It makes it a little bit more complicated in my experience. But do you do things afterwards?
Yes, so I think a good way to get those higher translucency simulations is to use dashes or violet. I found violet in the right place in the right amount does uplift the look of the zirconia, and if used in combination with the post-stain and glazing, you can bring an effect out that looks really natural, and sometimes, you know, hard to tell if it's actually layered or stained. We see a lot of patients where we do final color checking, and the amount of times we can get away with a stain and glaze option, as for instance matching a central, which is quite challenging, you know, is probably 70% of the time you can get away with it, and you can mimic it realistically and quite accurately. The one thing I also want to say is with the functional, the one thing that I really like about this ceramic is when you go into the 1200 plus MPa zone for zirconias, a lot of the time when you do bridges, you get in the pontic area like a high value, low translucency, and it's quite overwhelming and quite in contrast with the crown next to it. And many times when you take it out of the sintering furnace, it's disappointing to see it. And it's quite common that type less translucent, higher strength zirconias. With this, the nice thing about it is you can do a bridge, monolithic, pontics, the works. You can do it full contour, don't have to worry about layering, do the stain, do this, the sintering, and it will come out looking phenomenal. You don't have to compromise by doing some micro cutback and micro layering to deal with that. It's been absolutely fantastic. Less
Okay.
work, not less work.
Wow. But you're saying is micro layering and even normal layering that is still possible?
It's always an option. Most of the time when we do micro layering now for this, it's more about doing a shape correction than rather changing the color. I feel we've got good results just from staining accurately. And I think a good aesthetics does come from good staining pre-sintering and then following up with some accurate, nice effects afterwards in your glazing process. That combination together can give you nice results.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. And that is basically also getting a little bit like into the next question. It's good that our questions overlap. It almost looks like a coincidence. But how are you finishing this material? Do you have any other specific requirements or tips? And this is absolutely past sintering process. Is there anything you have to think about also when you put it in the furnace? How do you put it in the furnace? Are there special things you need to think about?
I think the one thing that stands out for me is that when you're using a glaze is to use a fluorescent glaze. It absolutely complements zirconia, and it's the right glaze to pair up with it. And like you said before, with the slow cooling, absolutely essential, especially if you do thick bridge units. You know, you should do slow cooling, and you should let it cool down to a reasonable temperature and not try to do any shortcuts. You know, you should commit enough time for these cases and don't feel rushed so that you have to shorten your cooling processes, because it's going to haunt you at the time where you don't want it.
Mm-hmm. And is that in your experience also the same with, for example, taking, I always love to call it shortcuts in the normal sintering process, in the fast speed sintering programs. Do you have a specific opinion about it? Are you using speed sintering actually, by the way?
We don't speed sintering, so we've got a protocol where we process our stuff, so we always end up with overnight sintering. And for me, it's a way where we can maintain a consistency and quality by keeping that consistent. So I don't opt for speed sintering. I try to avoid it and stick to the slower process, which is reliable, and it's been serving us really well. Yeah, so I stick to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, I'm a firm believer also, and that also has a little bit to do with the structure, how zirconia is changing from tetraconal to cubic and everything. And if you do a speed sintering, my experience is you are changing, you want to still keep your translucency. So what it does, it boosts directly up. Your cubic shapes are getting so much in line that you can even create an area that is more or less resistant to fractures. Like see it as the fabric of a tent or of a jacket, the ripstop material, and there is nothing to stop it. So it all gets in line, and you might have a zirconia that turns out weaker even. I definitely think with the Explore range, especially the functional, we've found a range that you have really the the hardcore strength. Let's call it like that.
Yeah. So this zirconia, over the time we're using it, it became indications for this keep on popping up. So it started turning into more like a go-to zirconia for us. Because the range that it covers for different indications was a bit broader than our other zirconias we used to use. So we used to opt between a stronger, a 1200 plus MPa option for the cases where we need strings, and then we had the 750 MPa one that will serve all the aesthetic cases. Now with this one, it's easy just to opt straight for the stronger zirconia. It gives you more peace of mind. I think any technician out there, and even dentists and patient, will probably can never have too much of peace of mind. It's always a good choice to consider the best strings where you can. So, and the nice thing with this one is there's no real sacrifice in aesthetics and translucency, which makes it really great.
Yeah. So basically, you're saying you use a very strong zirconia, much more opaque, and a lower strength, more translucent. You've replaced it. What's the percentage you think you've changed all your work towards using this material? Is there a specific percentage?
I would say the only cases where we probably would still consider using the different one is as the specific shades where you need extremely high value, maybe in a cervical area, which is not normal in relation to the shade guide. And with those cases, you still have to opt for probably an older type zirconia, which will offer you that, and then do some proper layering to achieve what you need to achieve. But in general, I would say at the moment, we're probably applying 80% of cases. What we do is pretty much the functional. I think the range that overlaps for the different indications is quite broad.
Okay, well, that is a huge transition, going all the way up to 80% that you can use this for all your cases in this limited amount of colors and heights that we currently stock.
Yeah, with good experience in stain, with your stain liquid, you can pretty much achieve any color on a shade guide with ease. And like we get a lot of multi colors per crown, so we have more than one shade by the dentist on each crown. And for that, the best way to work with that is to use your liquids and stain up certain areas of the crown in doing so. Like I said, the best aesthetics are always the ones where you can combine a bit of pre-sintering coloring with post-staining and to get the best aesthetics.
Definitely, yeah. All right, good. So I'm almost towards one of my final questions is, and you covered quite some things already, step by step. Also, what it helped you, but how does this material really help you business-wise? And is there also something specific you do to manage your inventory of different shades?
So as you said before, like with the limited disc, it's more forgiving. So 5 discs, you don't have to have 16 colors. So you're not going to carry all of that stock and have all that money sitting on a shelf, and then trying to manage the flow, making sure you've got stock at all time. It's a lot more work. So having a few good base colors, which put you an ability to achieve all the colors of the shades you need, is great. And having a material which can work for almost anything means that you might, like we have to add 2 types of zirconia in the past. Now, we could probably get away with just this one, and we'll be absolutely fine. So, and I think the extra peace of mind then, knowing that you've applied the strongest possible option for your restoration, one can never deny that.
No, look, in the end, it's always the biggest blame is always the weakness of the material, but there's obviously more about it. This is, like you said, also you have to change your mind of thinking, or when you do your designs, combined with optimal strength, combined with minimum stock. Yeah, it is, I think, a really good solution also for majority of the cases. Yeah, now this is I think definitely good to hear from someone who is a high experience user like you, to definitely how you control those things, why it helped you business wise, but also in your normal production, how you look at things. So I would love to thank you for all of that. Are there any more tips and tricks you would love to share with us, or are you saying like, hey, we would love to do more, but get in contact?
Yeah. So now the only thing I will add is, we do support other laboratories with their milling needs, and especially guys that doesn't have the infrastructure to support milling. And but the one thing I've noticed is, the confidence from these people, supporting the same product, and obviously getting positive feedback, and I can see how the part of their request is becoming more towards the Explore than when we first started a while ago. So I think everybody's confident with the product, and it's been doing really well, and I can just expect more usage from everybody as the time passes. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No. Definitely. We hope definitely the same. Well, good to hear that you definitely you're very keen to help other laboratories who don't have the layout, or who definitely want to try it. For example, we'll definitely hope to have your help and you on our side for that one. One of the things I would love to, what we've said previously also is like, hey, we want to have quality, but it also must be a little bit of cost effective, without going into the negative part about that one. But I think it's very important to have quality and price efficiency in balance. And I think it's for all of us very important. You mentioned it's a high quality zirconia also. You haven't talked about price really, but I will definitely do that, because I definitely know that a little bit more cost-effective zirconia will definitely help us achieving better goals, and it makes also easier to do some work. One of the things I would want to say, like I said, we have the 14 mil, the 18 mil, and the 25 millimeter zirconia 98 round in stock. All of the colors A1, A2, and A3 for the aesthetic, A1, A2, and A3, B2, and D2 for the functional. And I'm just going to put it up here, is the pricing. This is our normal list price. So you can see is, for example, if we take an 18 millimeter zirconia, for a lot of brands you pay a big price. And I definitely think a $199 for an 18 mil block is very interesting, and it should be helping a lot of labs and technicians also, especially in these current times. But I would definitely say if you are feeling like reaching out to us as Dental Access, as we can supply these materials, but especially also for you, Chris, if you're like you said, you're here also to help other technicians who don't have the layout. So I'll definitely will ask them, we'll direct them to you, and I would definitely like to thank you for all your input. And we just know from experience you're a very experienced technician with the right mindset. You think about how you utilize materials in the way of processing it, what it does, but also in your own workflow, with your own milling machine and everything. So I would love to thank you about this. And I am really looking forward to getting some positive feedback from customers, but also of course from your side. So Chris, I would definitely, again, would love to thank you for this one.
Thank you, Jerome. Glad to help out.
Perfect. Perfect. That's always good to hear. If someone is like, okay, I'll definitely want to try it, and you know the normal price, but if you want a special deal, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you want to follow more of what we do and also materials, new equipment coming up, please get in contact with us. If it's through email, if following us through the newsletter, or even following us on our social media. We're very active on those things because we find it very important to update everyone the best we can. Please feel free to reach out. If there are any questions, please directly contact us on our head office. They can directly to me or to one of my colleagues, and we can always refer to you, Chris, if they have any questions or want to try something.
Yeah, of course.
So perfect. Thank you again for this one, and everybody, please stay safe. And restrictions in Victoria are being slowly lifted, so we keep an close eye on that one, and hopefully we can all meet each other soon again, and definitely have an exciting future in the digital dentistry. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. If there is anything, please feel free to contact us, and we'll definitely look forward to seeing you all the next time. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.